Hey paisanos, it's a me, Hamish Steele, and welcome to another Super Mario Moment, the show where we marathon through every morsel of the Mario multiverse. And today we are tackling a game that some might consider to be not only the best of the Mario 2D platformers, some might even say it's the best of the Mario games, and some might even say it's one of the best games of all time. We are talking about Super Mario Brothers 3, released in Japan in 1988, then in America in 1990, and in little old Europe, where I'm from, in 1991. It was old by the time we got it, but it was a very big game in my house, and I think in the house of my guest. Now, I don't think I've ever mentioned this guest by name, but I have certainly talked about his show because at the end of every episode, I talk about other Glitter Jaw products. And one of my absolute favorites is the hilariously titled Lee Carvallo's Podding Challenge, which tackles the entire width and breadth of Simpsons video games. But it is so much more than that. And so I'm very excited to talk to this guest about one of my absolute favorite games. I am joined today by Tommy Proffitt. Whee! Red
my
Shell.
emotional support red Koopa shell with me.
All of mine are in view but packed away, and I bring them out for special occasions. But I've got such an odd assortment. I've got like a Boo, a Spike, which is another Mario Brothers 3 enemy.
Yeah.
But none down today. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me, even when I try to do a little prop thing like I know a lot of folks do, and I knock my mic. I'm such a professional at doing this. So
Hey, look, a Red Shell targets and homes in on the most important thing. I love having you on. You were among the people who I contacted ages ago to be on it and reserved this game. This is the only game, not to make you feel guilty, that other people have asked for and I've said sorry, it's taken.
I didn't know that.
No, but it very rarely happens. I've said on some episodes, I kind of crawl into people's DMs and say what Mario game do you want to talk about? And more often than not, it's shit like Kart Fighter, or I don't know. It comes out of nowhere. So
yeah,
you did good. So for those who don't listen to your shows and don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am the host of two podcasts, both on the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. The first one that I host with my partner is Distant Echoes, a Star Wars podcast, and that just goes through kind of the Star Wars television shows. We do that in kind of whatever order we please. Hamish, we're excited to have you on very soon. And the other one, which you've already mentioned, is Lee Carvallo's Podding Challenge, a Simpsons gaming podcast, which is a podcast based on a pun from a Simpsons episode, and it became a lot more than that. So yeah, and that is just going through chronologically every single Simpsons video game ever made, the good, the bad, the ugly.
I bring it up, on a lot of episodes because obviously you get a lot out of the show if you love The Simpsons or if you have played any of these games, but more than anything, I love it as just almost an audio documentary about the history of gaming. And I think to go through film or TV kind of year by year, you would kind of get the same effect. And I love that with The Simpsons, obviously you had kind of Bartmania, and then you had the golden age of the show, and then you had the movie, and in many people's opinions, sort of a decline of things. And I think it's so interests me because I do think Mario also had a kind of Mario mania moment. And I wouldn't say there's been necessarily a decline, but I think both feel very tied together in my head. And I think if you like Super Mario Moment, but would like there to be better research and more actual discussion about the history of gaming and consoles and all that stuff, definitely check that out. I'd even be interested if you weren't a Simpsons fan to see if you could follow it, because it's almost barely about it, because especially in the early years the games are barely about the Simpsons.
I mean, it truthfully, first of all, thank you, that's far too kind. I mentioned as well, I'm a huge fan of Mario Moment, huge fan of Mario video games, so I think that this is such a fun way to peek into and have conversations about something that I think everyone's really familiar with, but have really deep conversations that may not have happened yet. So love Super Mario Moment. And again, thank you again for the kind words about Lee Carvalho. It's been a labor of love, I will say, because so we started, the whole kind of concept behind it was both Derek and I, we've been friends since high school, and honestly before that as well, and we both had a love of The Simpsons, and I had a little bit more history, but not much, of The Simpsons video games. Derek had played, I think, one or two when we started the
Mm.
podcast, and hadn't played some of the bigger ones, which I felt was pretty egregious. So, truthfully, part of the reason that we started this podcast was to strong arm Derek into playing, my co-host into playing Simpsons Hit and Run and Simpsons Road Rage, which are kind of the two of the ones that fans put on kind of, the pedestal as some of the better
Mm.
Simpsons games. But yeah, because of some of the earlier games not having sort of a lot to talk about, we did go into them with kind of the idea of like, well, this would be a good time. Maybe we could just talk a little bit about arcades. Why not talk a little bit about arcades? Otherwise, the episode might just be like 30 minutes. And people seem to really gravitate towards those sort of like brief histories and those little moments where before we start talking about the game that are tangentially related, not always, but sometimes
Mm.
very like tiny bit related to the games themselves. And as we kind of progress, we were like, well, we really can't get rid of these now because everyone seems to really enjoy them. So it just turned into, finding those sort of through lines. And I really love diving deep on topics and deep on things that I don't know anything about. Most of the research that I do for each episode is new information for me. It's not
Mm.
something that I really, there's some of the times I'll have, background information or something like that. We're talking about Hit and Run coming up this coming week. And, I have some history with Grand Theft Auto and things like that, but the deeper history I don't really have. And so it gives me an opportunity to really dive in and just find out really interesting morsels and nuggets that I wouldn't otherwise know. And that's the type of thing I just really enjoy. I found through doing this podcast.
So in maybe a summary, what is your history with gaming
Yeah.
aside from The Simpsons?
Yeah, it it's one of those things where I don't know when I played my first video game, but it feels like I've always played video games. Like I know that going to probably the first video game I ever played, I think, was the first Super Mario Brothers. I think that
Mm.
was probably my first video game. I would go to my grandparents' house. They had a Super Nintendo in the sort of, I want to call it the rumpus room because that's the forgotten Simpsons room, but it's
Yeah.
really just like their den upstairs. And my brother and I, when we weren't outside, playing in the backyard, would go upstairs and play Super Mario Bros, Duck Hunt, and I truly, like, that is, very early memories for me is playing those games or watching other people play video games. So I mean, that was kind of, I was instantly kind of ingrained with that from there. And then when I was old enough and my family bought, our own consoles and things like that, Sega Genesis. I actually don't remember if we had a Super Nintendo, but I played a lot of Super Nintendo at friends' houses and things like that. I think we did have one at one point. But yeah, it's basically always been there. And my early history really does go back to Super Mario Bros. Like that was hugely influential for me as a gamer, quote unquote.
Mm. And do you still consider yourself a gamer? Are you keeping up with all the latest AAA titles and
It's it's so rough because honestly, like doing Lee Carvalho's potting challenge requires a level of, I have to play, this game
mm,
during this period of time. And it doesn't necessarily leave a lot of time for other games. Although I do find time. I mean, I'm currently playing through like Final Fantasy Tactics, the new release of that, because
mm,
that's one of my favorite games of all time. And so yeah, I do tend to keep up with it, but I think as I've done more Simpsons, it's very funny. I was playing Silk Song when that first came out, and which I know you had streamed Hollow Knight. and I was talking to some friends, and I had to take a break because I was playing Simpsons Road Rage, and they're like, "How far have you gotten into Silk Song? Like, this weekend or whatever?" And I was like, "Well, here's the thing. I started playing The Simpsons Road Rage, which is a game from 20 years ago, and I'm actually really enjoying it. So I haven't gone back to Silk Song."
Yeah, I mean, I have the same issue.
Yeah,
At least a lot of Mario games are pretty short.
yeah,
So far, we've only covered one of the RPGs, which I find kind of interesting.
yeah.
I might have, because RPGs are actually more of my like jam, oddly. And the Mario RPGs were a big part of that as well. So, usually I can cover a game in a week. I would try and play every game that we cover. There's a couple where I've played it so much or so recently that I don't feel like I need to fully deep dive on it. I did that
Sure.
last week with Mario 2. But yeah, there was definitely one time I work at an animation studio that also has a games division. So every time I go in, I like chat to the games people, and they always say like, "Oh, what are you playing?" And I'll just be like, "Oh, Wario Land Shake It for the Wii." Like, and they're like, "Whoa, what's that?" And I'm like, "It's pretty good." So yeah, it's a lot of work making a gaming podcast. It's not like just watching one film, It's not just like what I mean, there's lots on Glitterjaw where they're covering like books and films and TV shows and stuff, but I don't know. I think gaming's tough.
It is very tough, and it is one of those things where it's like, as soon as you turn something that's a hobby into
Hmm.
a job, it starts some of the luster like starts to disappear a little bit. Thankfully, playing I get the opportunity to play some truly not great games, which doesn't seem to ruin the fun of fun
Yeah.
games, for me, because Bart versus the Space Mutants, it's not one of the better games, that I've played in my lifetime, so it doesn't really ruin, other games necessarily for me.
Yeah, it's genuinely one of the reasons I do little season breaks for Super
Yeah.
Mario Moment is just to catch up with other games. Because I actually have Final Fantasy Tactics like on my Switch ready to go, but I need a little break. I need a little Christmas off.
Yeah.
So, and also just for viewers and listeners, the Derek we keep mentioning as the co-host was on our Bowser's Fury episode. So
Yeah.
I'm
Great
trying to
episode.
get through all the Glitterjaw hosts. And just to quickly mention Distant Echoes, because that is
Yeah.
your other passion. I'm excited to come on in a few weeks. And do you have any Star Wars games that you feel as passionate about?
It's funny because I feel like there's more there's more better Star Wars games than there are
Mm,
Simpsons games. We'll say that. And when I was thinking about this, I went to two, and one of them is I think a pretty popular answer, which is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is the RPG. I can't remember exactly when that came out, but it was a BioWare RPG, prior to Mass
yeah.
Effect and things like that. And that game is just so deep and steeped in lore, and it's I think one of the games that people who are fans of Star Wars video games like point to as like one of the best that have ever been made. Um, the other one was there's this Star Wars arcade trilogy game. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Hamish. It was uh, so it was Sega. It was made in 1999, and it was this big kind of arcade cabinet, and it had a joystick, and it would basically allow the player to play through a variety of different battles in
Hmm.
Star Wars history and in the original trilogy films. And it was just so fun. I don't even remember exactly like what you did. I just remember you flew around in different ships and things like that. And then at the very very end there was a fight with Darth Vader, which I never could actually get past because it was just too difficult for me. But my growing up, my dad was a sort of over the road long haul truck driver, and
Mm.
so I would actually go with him on trips sometimes, and then we would, on occasions, if we stopped at like a truck stop or something like that, they would often have arcades, and I just remember playing that in the arcades, and that just like really stuck with me.
Oh, that's cool. I um the Rogue Squadron games were a
Yes.
big deal in my house. I think part of the ongoing quest my brother has to find the successor to Star Fox 64, he would just buy any kind of like space shooting game. But we like Star Wars. But Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they do have a pretty high quality rate.
Yeah.
But I guess none of them have impacted my life as much as a terrible Mario game tends to.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think it's kind. I mean, the Star Wars games kind of are a little bit like the Simpsons games in a sense where it's like the show is the thing, the movies have always been, you know, the thing, and so I think you can get by without ever playing a Star Wars game and still have, you know, a deep appreciation for and a deep understanding of Star Wars. Whereas, you know, and same thing with the Simpsons, like you don't ever have to play a Simpsons game. And there's some that I don't think anybody should, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I keep, you know, talking about some of the worst ones, but I actually have a really deep appreciation for some of the games that are a little bit rough around the edges. But, you know, with Star Wars, I think it's easier to kind of overlook them, right? Because you don't necessarily need to play them for any reason other than if you are a super huge Star Wars fan and you just want to consume all Star Wars media that you possibly can.
I can't believe I came on the Lee Carvallo's episode for Fortnite.
Yeah.
And I can't believe we didn't have enough time to talk about AI Darth Vader. Did you see any of that?
I did. And yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I did not like it. I obviously am anti-AI. I'm anti-dead actors' voice being used in that way. No matter what the family says, no matter what, it's just weird. It's wrong. But I was amused somewhat by the amount of time people tried to like ask Darth Vader questions about, like, someone tried to come out to him and he just said something like pride is a distraction from the Force. Which
that is I mean, yeah, same thing. I don't particularly care for when the I mean, it's tough, right? Because it's like if the family says it's okay, but at the same time, it also is very much a I don't know. I really don't like it. I don't like it at all.
No.
I didn't know that someone tried to come out to it. That's very interesting to me.
Well, let's talk about something we do like. Let's
Yes.
chat about Super Mario Brothers 3.
新しい冒険が今始まろうとしている。愛よ、勇気よ、奮い立て。僕らはマリオと強くなる。テクニカルファンタジーゲーム「スーパーマリオブラザーズ3」。
How lovely was that?
That was so lovely. I loved that so much.
So yes, today we're talking about Super Mario Brothers 3. It entered development shortly after Super Mario Brothers 2, as you would imagine. And by 2, we do, of course, mean the Lost Levels, not the game we covered on last episode. And interestingly, while sales of Mario Brothers 2, the Japanese version, were okay, and people seem to like it, it wasn't just Nintendo of America who said this game looks the same as the last one, it's too hard, blah blah blah. The core internal development team agreed, and they decided that for the third game they wanted to blow everyone out of the water and make something brand new. It was decided very early on that the game would have all new graphics. It was decided that it would have mostly all new music, much to composer Koji Kondo's stress levels. And it went through all kinds of strange development phases. There was a brief time where they wanted to make it an isometric platformer, and discovered what many 3D platform developers have discovered in the future, but it's actually much harder to jump on enemies from that perspective. And lots of other ideas were thrown out. And also at the same time, this game had to compete with brand new consoles like the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, which were just coming up with much more impressive graphics. The little old Famicom, little old NES had to stuff as much as they could into a cartridge to compete. And I think history has proven that they did the job well. So, Tommy, of all the Mario games that you could have talked about, why Super Mario Brothers 3?
I mean, I think you touched on a lot of the reasons. It's just such a well-crafted game. It took the formula that I think was already like very good. But like you said, they have Super Mario Brothers 2 that comes out and it's just kind of a little bit of a repetition of the original formula. And so they could have continued down that trajectory, right? They could have still, done a very similar thing. And they chose not to. They chose to do something that is pretty revolutionary and pretty groundbreaking. And like Mario Brothers 3, the DNA of that, I think, is in so many of the other future games, and not even just Mario games. Like the DNA of Mario 3 is in so many other games, period. The world map feature is, extremely unexpected, and it really lays the groundwork for like so many other. I know there's been world maps and things like that before this game, but the way that they do it is so special. And it just, there's something about this game that just every piece of it comes together so perfectly well that it really does feel like a near perfect game for me. Outside of that, personally, I think Mario Brothers 3, I've probably replayed more times than I've played and replayed any other game, I think. Easily, hands down. And outside of maybe like, roguelikes or, something that is like meant to be replayed, or like an online game. And so it just holds a really special place in my heart because I can always go back to it. And even though I've played it as many times as I have, I still have a certain level of enjoyment every single time that I play it. I don't know. It just really has like everything coming together for it that it makes it replayable. It makes it really special the first time you play it. It's just a really, really special game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never really thought about the reality where the third game could have just been another Mario Brothers 1. A little bit Mega Man, where they kind of made 6 in a row that sort of look the same and creep forward a little bit, step by step. It's interesting that Nintendo always seems to rather take their time to make something a big step forward than try and make as much as they can on the engine that they still have. Like even something like Tears of the Kingdom recently, which is the same engine, is still played in an entirely different way, basically. And it kind of feels like it all started there. What are your memories of playing for this for the first time, and when did you play it?
I honestly don't know when the first time I played it was. It just always has kind of been there. Like I feel like I've always, there's never been a time when I hadn't played this game, as weird as that is to say. I mentioned going to my grandparents' house and playing, NES. At some point they picked up Mario Brothers 3, and my brother and I switched to playing that almost immediately because it's a much easier game, I think, than the original Mario Bros. So there was a reason to go back to playing that. I played a ton of it on the All-Stars, Super Mario All-Stars for the SNES. I think that was the main place. That was the first time I think I beat the game, was through the All-Stars, the All-Stars version. And that version I think still holds up very well too. But I truly don't know when the actual first time I played it was. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, I don't know when I learned about like the secret whistles and things like that. I just always knew where they were. We like, my brother and I always just knew that the secret whistles existed and we knew where to go get them. I will say there was one that took us a very long time to learn about, which was the one in World 2. I don't know why. That was just one that for the longest time we didn't know where that one was. But it's such a weird thing to think about because it's just one of those things that feels like it's always been like in my memory. I don't know if you feel the same way about it, but it always feels like it's there.
So it was interesting when I found out that the game came out in 1991. I had always assumed that all the games had just like existed in the house as long as I had lived, basically, because I have 2 older brothers. It's interesting to think I would have actually been alive for a little bit of the hype leading up to it. But yeah, my memories of all the games, like I just would play 1, 2, and 3, and then like Duck Hunt and whatever other games we had on the NES. Just like playing a game wasn't just, I'm gonna play Mario Brothers 3. It would be, I'm gonna play the NES, and I would just sit in front and like swap games over whenever I like got bored or died. So I played all of them over and over again. I think I mentioned on the Mario 2 episode that that's the one that I would like gravitate to a lot. But 3 has always been my brother's favorite game, and I've always liked it a little bit more than Mario World. And it just, I loved it on All Stars. I had the advanced version. It's the game that, like, whenever modern Mario games will make a little reference to a Mario 3 specific thing, that's my Mario, and I feel very like, ooh, like,
Yeah.
very fond of it.
It does feel, it's interesting because it does feel more like, to me, like the Mario game, even compared to Mario Brothers,
Yeah.
the original Mario Bros. And I think that is just because of how well they set out the formula. And again, with the games moving forward, like, the new Soup games, those really borrowing a lot from this formula. The world map is very similar to the world map in Mario 3. Even Mario Wonder, I think, has a very similar sort of styled world map. And so I think that that's probably like part of the reason why we gravitate towards it so much, because it feels like it feels natural that they got to this point with Mario 3, but it also is such a huge leap that it's kind of a perfecting of the original formula they had, but then also introducing a lot of new things.
Like, graphically and art style wise, it's crazy that they're on the same console.
Yeah.
And it's, there's no extra pixels. It's just they've realized what they can do with this console. And it just has so much extra style. It feels like Super Mario Brothers 1 was like, it's all those famous stories about characters looking the way they do to make the colors clear and make everything as like logical and sort of readable as possible. And in this, it's like, what if it was a stage show? What if everything had a little shadow? And what if there's so much extra polish and attention paid to the world itself? And it feels a little bit like, they're bringing the world of the box art and the instruction manual closer to the games, and everything feels a bit more sort of on model and designed.
There's more flair to it. There's so much more flair. I'm glad you mentioned the stage play portion of it too, because there is something that is almost kind of theatrical, right? Like to the game, and how the game plays out. You get to the end level and you're kind of like going off screen almost. There's like secrets where if you duck on the white blocks, you can go behind the scenery. And it's stuff like that I think. And also just like the fact that it does give you a lot of those secrets that for a lot of games are just kind of those playground rumors, where it's like, oh, if you duck behind the white block in, is it 3-3, and then go behind the stage, before the exit, you'll find a secret whistle. Like, that's the kind of stuff that sounds fake. Like, you know what I mean? It sounds like it's something that a kid made up, but it's in the game.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Mario World, its overworld has like a lot of secrets and things to unlock, but I would say that that's almost getting to the point of feeling like, 100%ing a game and ticking a box, whereas Mario Brothers 3 still exists in a world where I wouldn't be surprised if we still find some strange secrets in there. Because like you say, they don't really make any sense. They're just fun.
Yeah.
And another thing I really like about it is that everything about it is a game. Like, the world map is a game, and then the little card games and every single part of it is fun, intentionally. There's no sort of menu screen of like, which level do you want to select? They could have easily have done that. They could have easily have, even the little menu at the bottom where you can select your items, like, that's fun. It's fun to flip it around, and everything about it is just charming. It feels like so much extra time was spent on this than the first game, just on polish and how every overworld has its own music and everything's dancing and everything's just so much extra love that you can sense.
Yeah, and even, I mean, you can interact with like the overworld, right? Like there's the music box that puts the enemies that move around the world map to sleep. That's something that they don't have to do. They don't have to put that in the game. They give you little items that let you slide past like certain levels and stuff like that if you don't want to play a certain level. And it's funny, you mentioned you wouldn't be surprised if there were secrets about the game that we still don't know. So normally when I play through Mario Brothers 3, I would do, I would play the levels or the worlds that I want to play, because you have the option to skip with like warp whistles and things like that. And I don't think I had ever done a 100% playthrough of this game, because there's some levels where I'm just like, I just don't want to play that. Like, I'll just, go to World 8 and beat the game. That's, and so I decided before the podcast that I would do 100% playthrough. And there were some levels that I was like, I don't think I've ever played this level before in World 7, because that's one that you typically skip if you're skipping to World 8, and so I was just like, wow, this is so wild to me that after all these times I've played through this game, I've not actually, played this level.
Yeah, it's a different kind of game making now, where modern games wouldn't really see skipping huge chunks of the game as a reward.
Yeah.
But it's from a time when you didn't necessarily have a save file, and so you just had to keep getting as far as you could. How far could you get this time? More roguelike than how it would be now, where you really do want to make sure that you've not missed any level anywhere.
Yeah.
So this game, I think, was one of the first to be as hyped up as it was. Like I said, it came out in 1988 and took quite a few years to come out around the rest of the world. But the rest of the world knew it was coming. And I'm going to play a little commercial which shows you what the hype was like.
Mario! Mario!
Mario!
He's back. All you had to do was ask. Super Mario Brothers 3 from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
It's Mario! Look, Ronald! Mario's mystery block makes him big!
And my magic box makes us lunch.
What's in McDonald's Happy Meal? One of 4 Nintendo Super Mario Brothers 3 toys. A Mario toy that jumps, or an acrobatic little Goomba, a pullback Luigi, or a hopping Koopa Paratroopa. One toy with each Happy Meal you buy.
Now, we discussed that you didn't exactly remember when you played this, and I actually don't know how old you are, but were you aware of this game's hype?
No, so I was born in 89, so I was very young when it was first sort of coming out, but kind of going back and doing like, research for other games and things like that, you'll come across the ad that you played of, the Mario face on kind of the world. I love that ad so much. Like, it's so silly, and also it's just all you had to do is ask. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, what are you saying? Like, what does that mean?
But when you could advertise a game with 0 game footage,
yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that this game had been out in Japan for quite a few years, well, like a couple of years, meant that some people had actually played the game in the US because some stores were just selling it anyway. It got featured in The Wizard, a shameless kind of Nintendo advert disguised as a heartwarming road trip movie, which we might be covering on a future season of Super Mario Moment. And obviously Nintendo Power and other Nintendo magazines were basically building up the hype for years and years and years. Well, 2. And I, even though I was too young to sort of remember it, my brothers were older and they did have those Happy Meal toys. And we actually had, I think it was taped off the TV, Pinocchio, that we just kept for years because it had in the ad break that Mario commercial. And so we wanted to, like, in the like pre-YouTube days, we wanted to like keep it, sort of make sure that it happened, that hype happened. But then you also had the Mario Brothers 3 cartoon series, and I just remember a lot of the comics as well at the time. It really did feel like this was the peak of Mario Mania.
Yeah, I assume you're going to cover the Mario 3 cartoon at some point, but
Yes.
that show, I haven't watched a lot of it, but it's so fascinating. That show is like the amount of elements they pull in from the game itself, like music and sound and style. Like the episode's opening with like the world map. I don't know if they do that throughout the entire
Mm.
series, but showing that at the very start is so interesting to me. And yeah, I mean the hype for this game was, pretty spectacular. I think the fact that they really they really went as far as to make a whole movie essentially to promote this game and other things, the Power
Mm.
Glove and uh everything else. It just shows, like, I mean, I think they also had to have known that they had something special on their hands, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like the fact that they could sell a movie just on the idea that at the end you might see some clips from a game that's already out in Japan is just something that's would be hard to explain to like someone a few years younger than us.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I think as you're completely right, like we discussed this on the Mario 2 episode last week, but like obviously we can think in retrospect everything turned out fine, but I do sort of agree with Nintendo America that like the Mario 2 they were given might have actually killed the Mario hype. Like, you know,
Yeah.
the fact that this felt like the true sequel. We didn't really cover any of the build up to the Mario 2 like that the US got. But that, that was a bestseller that Christmas, it did well. But I think there's something about this game which feels like the true sequel to Mario.
Yeah.
To even at the time, even I knew growing up that Mario 2 was the weird one that felt a bit different. Do you think, we've talked about a lot of the ways that this game improves, but in terms of it just being like the sequel to Mario Brothers, what do you think are some of the like gameplay elements that are
Yeah.
most improved?
I mean, I think that the controls are just so much tighter in this game. It controls so much better. You have less of the slidey sort of physics that you get in the
Mm,
original Mario Brothers 1 and then Mario Brothers 2. Of course, in the US Mario Bros 2, I feel like that probably controls a little bit more smoothly even
mm,
than maybe Mario Brothers 3 does, but that's also just a completely different, game engine and everything like that. But I think that's a huge thing. I think the power-ups, the level of detail in the power-ups is very that element of it like elevating the power-ups beyond, what you have in the original game, I
mm,
think really makes the play style that much better. And also the fact that you can take the power-ups wherever you want to go. You kind of have this sort of like a little bit of a freedom to play the game how you want to play the game. You get, special power-ups that give you, P speed throughout the entire level that you can just essentially skip through certain levels. We talked about warp whistles. You can put on the frog suit on any level and, it might not work out the best if you're not underwater, but you can do that. And so I think that is like an element of, we talked about the polish, we talked about the controls, but like the element of letting players play the game how they wanted to play it is something
mm.
that I think is very special about this game as well.
Yeah, there's actually an element of strategy and
Hmm.
like a small RPG element
Yeah.
to a degree, because a lot of it's about saving up items. And whenever I got like the hammer costume, for example, I would be like saving that for real
Yes.
special occasions. There's like the star power, which makes you invincible, but just for the start of a level. So sometimes you wouldn't necessarily use that going into a level or in an auto scroll or in something you hadn't played before. But if you're really struggling just with the first bit, or if you just want to skip the first bit and get to where you were, you can use a star. I find all that stuff really interesting. And I think in 2-player, do you share the items or do you not? I can't remember.
I don't remember either because I feel like that was a point of contention for me and my
Yes.
brother. Because like you can also, there's the item houses as well. And
Yeah.
I can't recall now if you each get your own item house. I don't think you do. I think once one is cleared out,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah. So there's definitely a little bit of, talking strategy, or maybe you're in competition. That's quite fun.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite power up?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think I love the Tanuki suit, like the full actual. We
Yeah.
always, I mean, we didn't have the manual or anything for it growing up, so we called it the bear suit. That's what we always called it.
Mm,
And I love the Tanuki suit. I love how it, but because of course, if you get the leaf power up, you still get the tail and the flying ability. But the full suit, I think there's just something special about having that, and then also being able to turn into the statue. That's something that I always thought was very, very cool. I love the Karibo shoe as well,
yeah, yeah,
which is such an interesting thing that they did, because that's not a power up that you can take anywhere else except for the levels, the stages
yeah.
that it's in. And that always made it feel extra special, right? Like that element of, it doesn't matter how many times I've played those levels, if there's a Karibo shoe in it, or I don't know if it's shoe or boot, if there's a
Mm.
Karibo shoe in it, I have to play in the shoe. Like, you have to.
I mean, I think in the Mario World episode, we talked about how Shigeru Miyamoto's desire to have Mario ride a dinosaur was basically from the very first Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see a little bit, in Mario Brothers 2, you can like slightly ride things. You can
Mhm.
ride like an ostrich and a flying carpet and stuff. In this game, the Karibo shoe, the power-ups that make you a little bit of an animal, and then yeah, Mario World, he finally got his wish of having Yoshi appear.
Yeah.
But I like that little, and there's other just little things. I find it interesting that it's a game where you see enemies that also seem to be affected by items somewhat.
Yeah.
Like you get the really tiny Goombas and bloopers, you get the giant Goombas and things, and the first piranha plant you come across throws fireballs at you, which is kind of out of nowhere if you've played the other games.
Yeah.
Um,
The
Everything just seems more fun. Yeah.
Yeah, the enemy design in this game is pretty special too. I also think that it's not talked about enough how, or maybe it is. This game has been talked about to death, I feel like, but the way in which the game introduces you to the world, I think it does such a good job. Those introductory levels of, you get pretty much everything you need to know in levels 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So, it's everything about it. I think they just really do such a good job of introducing the player to it.
Again, it's from a time where you wouldn't really get big tutorials, but
Mhm.
you arrive in a level with these really big slopes and sort of Goombas walking up them or coins going down them, and you just sort of instinctually think, maybe I can slide down them, and
Yeah.
that's a new feature in the game, which you kind of can't imagine Mario not having anymore. And obviously, yeah, we get a bunch new enemies, which is fun, and they all have kind of fun, interesting mechanics. I did mention in our notes a few kind of famous things like Boos and Chain Chomps and Dry Bones and Thwomps and stuff, but I think a couple of the most iconic and terrifying enemies are the Angry Sun
Mm.
and the Big Bertha, or the big fish coming to eat you, which I think are like some of the scariest moments in gaming.
Truly, especially, yeah, the big fish, Big Bertha, when that first swallows you whole, like when you're playing that game for the first time and that happens, it's just kind of, you didn't know that that's a thing that could occur, right? And that happens very late in the game, not late in the game, but like it's not in the first couple of worlds where that happens.
Yeah, it's very intentionally not making Mario go like bloop and die.
Yeah,
They want you to know that he's been swallowed.
he's been swallowed whole. Yeah, he's gone. He's
Yeah.
not coming back. But then he does come back, of course.
But I just think that's interesting because it's not just that they invented a ghost, it's a whole mechanic. It's
Yeah.
like, they follow you when you're not looking. Thwomps, they fall when you get close and things like that. And Chain Chomps as a whole, it's just so interesting. But the enemies seem to be a kind of obstacle they've come up with first. And then or Dry Bones, they come back to life. Like there's just, every enemy has a little thing.
Yeah.
And I just find all of that such good. I mean, it's such standard stuff now, but when you compare it to, like I said, the sequel to Mario Brothers, just it's so many steps forward.
Well, and you also have, I know that you can do this in Mario Bros. 2, the not original Mario Brothers 2. you can pick up items, and I think that is something that you don't really expect, right?
Yeah.
In this game, because you couldn't do that in the original Mario Bros.
Yeah, and there's actually some things in this that do feel influenced by Doki Doki Panic, in
Yeah.
the sense that, yeah, you can pick up a few things. There's a few sort of enemies that seem to act the way they do in Mario Brothers 2. But one of the most interesting additions to Mario lore are the Koopalings, which growing up, they were the Koopa kids to me. I'm still they are Bowser's kids, truther. But what are your thoughts on the Koopalings?
I love them. I love everything about them. Anytime they show up in something, that I immediately like gravitate towards them, because they're they all have their own unique personalities. And even, I mean, in this game, they don't really differ that much from one another, although they do have their own individual attacks. But I just love how like special and different they each look from one another. And I think that's something that's really cool, and I think that adds to the allure of kind of like the enemies in Mario Brothers games, of like they have like this like individuality. Like you see a lot of the, same Koopas and Goombas and things like that throughout the games, but then you start getting these Koopalings or Koopa kids. I also call them the Koopa kids. And they have their own personality, and they have their own sort of like, it almost feels like they have their own way to express themselves through their attacks. And there's something that's very special about that. I really like that. And I don't know, I just always have gravitated towards them and think they're really cool.
Do you have a favorite?
I think I like Wendy a lot, and Iggy. Of course, those are, I think, both the ones that are based off of punk rockers, right?
There's a few.
Yeah.
I kind of like them all. Every time I say I don't like every time I like one too much. Like I never used to like Ludwig, and then in Mario Kart 8 he like dabs every time he does a trick, and I was like, now he's my favorite.
He's
Sorry.
great. Yeah.
I really love Roy. I used to really like Larry growing up because he was just sort of basic, but
Yeah.
I kind of find that cute. Yeah. So speaking of favorites, do you have any like favorite worlds?
So we always called it Big World growing up, but Giant Land, I think, is the actual name. Going into the first level and that, and seeing everything is massive, was such a shock when you first play the game. And being able to still like interact with enemies the same way and like break blocks and stuff like that, it's just so fascinating, and it's always a really fun one to go back and play that. I really, really love, I'll always call it Big World, but Giant Land.
No, I mean, again, not to just keep criticizing the other great Mario games in order to raise this one up, but I would say this game has a much bigger sense of you traveling a entire like world. I really get the sense, like in Dinosaur Land and Mario World, it's like quite different, but I also feel like it feels more enclosed and things don't change as much. And obviously Mario Brothers 1, they barely change at all, but in this, each world has such a different feel, and it starts right from the map with its unique music themes and stuff. I also like Giant Land because I didn't know if this was intentional, but I always remember the island you're on looks like a dinosaur. It has like a dinosaur face. So I was always happy to see that as a kid.
The map is really cool. I also really love because of the music, specifically World 6, and just the general aesthetic of the ice land. They do a really good job of like the art style in World 6. And as soon as you get into that, I think that's my favorite music in the whole game is World 6 world map theme. And because it's kind of creepy, almost like it has this like creepy vibe to it, but it also does feel chilly, like it feels cold. And then the striped background when you're in some of the levels that are, outdoors and stuff like that. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like the ice physics, but outside of that, I think they're, I think that the aesthetics of that world is very fun.
You're not supposed to like the ice physics.
Yeah, right.
Like it's always a later world for that very reason. I love the music in I think it's like the Sky World. It's so like jolly and like I don't know, it's such a good time. I was mentioning when Mario Brothers 3 comes up in games, I smile. It's mostly when the Mario Brothers 3 music shows up in stuff like Mario Kart World, or just like it's used occasionally for a bonus level of some other Mario game. That's when I get real member berries, whatever people want to call them. And start getting very fond of it. This game has a lot of content, but it has some cut content or some scrapped ideas. We mentioned the isometric stuff, we mentioned the dinosaurs, but one of the power-ups that was supposed to be in the game that was never developed was Horse Mario. Have you ever heard about this?
I haven't. No.
Right. It came from Miyamoto himself. They really
course
wanted
it
to
did.
make it, but no official image or description of what that is
Oh
has
my
come up.
God.
What do you think that could have possibly meant?
I really hope he turned into a very like weird looking four-legged horse and ran around on all fours. I have no idea. I mean, I imagine it probably would have been something. I bet it was something with speed, right? Because I mean, it Mario doesn't go but so fast, you know, and I part of me wonders if it was like he was just gonna be able to get to P speed much faster or something like that would be my guess, but I hope he just turned into some weird looking grotesque horse.
Yeah, I never really thought about that, but this game has a speed meter,
Yeah.
so you would think that maybe that was the part. Maybe you could run across water or something.
Ooh, yeah.
But it's hard to guess because the raccoon power makes you fly. So maybe the horsepower would have made you shoot lasers or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Who knows?
So with that in mind, do you think there's anything missing from this game or any criticisms you have?
I mean, it's tough. It really is because I mean, it's not a perfect game, but it feels really damn close to one.
Yeah.
It feels really close to as perfect of a game, especially in this era, that you can really get. I think I don't know. I think that if there was I mean, there's some things that come out later on that I think if you add in, different ways to play the game back after. It took me the longest time to learn to realize there was a new game plus essentially in this. Like when you beat the game and go back in, you have just your inventory full of, the P power up. I forget what I don't know what it's actually called, the jewel that Princess Peach gives you. But I mean, I think there's probably like some different things that they could do with, you know, when you do go to play the game again to make it feel a little bit more fresh. But I mean, I don't really know what that would be. I truly don't.
Yeah, this is truly one of the games. I don't know what I'd say.
Yeah.
Bad. I mean, there's so many parts of the game we haven't even chatted about. Like, I think the game has some really incredible just like atmosphere and like the dark world and the airships and things. I love the really weird plot of the kings being turned into animals and stuff.
Right.
Like, I love the fact that this game even has like a 2-player battle mode. They just like put the original arcade Mario Brothers in the game and don't even like really tell you it's there. It's
Right.
just, it really feels stuffed, and I would say maybe the perfect Mario game, because as much as I do think later games are really great and perfect in their own little ways, I just don't think like this is quintessential to me. This like if they'd never made another Mario game after this, I still think we'd be talking about this game almost as much, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it still would be as influential in gaming in general. Right. I think it would have the impact that it has. Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like it's again, it's as close to perfect as you can get with, the early Mario formula. And, I'm sure I know a lot of other, like you said, there's other things about other Mario games that feel, perfect as well. But I think this one is like a very special amount of perfect because it was the first one to really perfect the formula.
Yeah. And have you seen its kind of influence and legacy in non-Nintendo games or any other games that you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that like a lot of platformers, especially like even modern 2D platformers, still take inspiration from Mario 3. You have, I mean, I'm thinking Super Meat Boy, I think just generally takes from, Mario, but I think that, yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know that like again, I think it is looked to as like the pinnacle or like the pillar of 2D platforming. Again, I think the world map, even though other games have had world maps before, a lot of them tended to be RPGs, right? And so games having world maps that aren't necessarily RPGs, I think is probably you owe a little bit to Mario Brothers 3 for adding that. So again, can't really think of any off the top of my head, but those would be the ones that I would think of initially.
There's one I really love, and it was relevant to what was just on our screens just then. But in the game Celeste,
Yes.
which is a platform game, there's always like collectible hearts. And there's one moment where if you've played Mario Brothers 3 and you know the game like the back of your hand like I do, there's a moment when you come across a like white little like square of block, and I just instinctively press down on it for like 5 seconds and you drop behind it. And I was so delighted that basically my like knowledge of games was being rewarded.
Yeah.
And basically there would be whole, generations of people who would be like, what the heck? Why was that in the game?
Yeah, I think that element, right, of not even like specifically, the going behind the scenery or anything like that, but the element of it's okay to have like some of these secrets and stuff like that. Again, games did that before Mario 3, but I think the kinds of secrets that are in Mario 3, I think are influential throughout gaming as well. And so the fact that like it was as successful as it was while still having some of those things and not necessarily like hand holding you through finding a lot of those, I think you can credit, future developers for putting secrets in their games, a la this type of secret is one where I think you could really look to Mario 3 as well.
So before we finish, any final thoughts on Super Mario Brothers 3?
I do love at the end of the game when you beat the game that you rescue Princess Peach and you get I'm sorry, Mario, but your princess is in another castle. Like she's telling you that. And then she says, haha, just kidding. Like, I love that. I think that's so silly, but I think it's so great. And it rewards you for knowing, like, obviously playing the first Mario game as well.
I mean, also, it's just like, okay, these characters are paper thin. So one of the one things we know about Peach now is that she's like sarcastic as hell. And like, they have a sense of humor with each other. It's funny. They like each other.
Even Bowser, you get like you're going through the progression of every time you save one of the kings, you get a letter from the princess, and then you get to the final letter and it's from the king of the Koopa. And even that itself and him writing out ha 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 in his letter it's very funny to me.
Well, now, if you have time, we are going to go to the question block. Woo! This is the part of the show where we ask lots of quick fire, silly questions, and we see how many you can answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. Question number 1. Who is your main when you play games like Mario Kart or other spin-offs?
So Mario Kart 8, I'm very basic. It's Link on a motorcycle. Mario Kart World, it's my boy DK. And then in Smash, it's usually either Meta Knight or Lil Mac. Those are my two.
Oh, very nice. Which obscure Super Mario Bros. 3 character would you like to add to Mario Kart?
This is a tough one because I feel like most characters are in Mario Kart now, like from Mario Brothers 3. But I would say we don't have the Angry Sun. But I would actually say I think if you added the Angry Sun as a power-up, that would be kind of cool.
That's actually such a good idea.
Like it just kind of stays on the screen and kind of does the, its little movement around and other players have to try to avoid it. I think that would be a good one.
My pick would be like one of the kings because as a kid I used to read these Valiant Mario comics, and the like design of the first king you rescue was just Peach's dad, and I spent a long time wondering like where he was in the games. Yeah, she's a princess. Where's the king?
Yeah.
So if you were a Mario power-up, if Tommy Mario was a thing, what would Mario get from touching you?
The ability to do really bad improv. I don't know. I don't know, do really bad improv and spend far too much time researching little things about, a topic that he's hyper focused on.
He can ruin every level by pulling out a gun.
Yeah, exactly.
His ability.
Yeah, for sure.
No, you don't, Oprah. Right. Many of the Koopalings are named after famous musicians of the era. Which are some of your favorite musicians that deserve their own Koopaling?
Okay, so we have a lot of music genres covered, right? Like we have punk, we have metal, classic rock, classical music, country, I think, Roy Orbison, right? So there's no hip hop, right? Like there's no representation for hip hop. So as a Virginia native, and also to give another female Koopaling, I think we should give Missy Elliott do a Missy Koopa. Missy
Koopa. Well, I'm very pro adding more female Koopalings.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Missy Koopa. I might draw that this week.
Oh my god, if you do, please, I need to see that. I need to see Missy Koopa.
Cool. And so I have to ask, what would Tommy Cooper be? Which, oddly enough, is actually the name of a famous British comedian. But
really, I did not know that. That's so fun. Man, I don't know. I think I would be kind of in like the same size bracket as Roy and Ludwig, like the bigger kind of Koopalings. And I'd like to think I would have like, I don't know, like black fingernail polish and like a punk rock sort of visage, even though there's already some punk ones. So that'd be the one. But then also like, I don't know, my patented lucky pink hat.
I mean, you've got Bart behind you. It'd be cool to do a Koopaling battle in like a skateboarding half pipe or something.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, that would be a good one. A skateboarding Koopa. I don't know if I represent skateboarding well enough for that to be my thing, but if I'm the Koopa for that, I will do it.
So if you were a king transformed into an animal, which animal would that be?
My first thought is water buffalo. Because I love them.
Okay.
I just love a water buffalo. I don't have any other reason other than that. And
very Beauty and the Beast coded.
Yeah. I'm also just like a hairy, bigger guy, so
So if this game was badly modded into a 90s Bart game, what do you think it would be like?
Bad.
Yeah, probably.
Bad, and it would control way worse than it does now. It would just be bad.
And then finally, in honor of Distant Echoes as well, Super Mario Kart for the Super NES had 8 races. If that had been a Star Wars game, a Star Wars karting game at the time, who would the roster been?
So, I mean, we kind of almost got like there was a racer for the N64, but that didn't have like any memorable characters. It had stuff like Fudd Sang and like Aldar Beto and stuff like that. So, but I think you would have to have young Anakin, pod racer, of course. Sebulba, just because, you have to have your 2 pod racers. Han Solo as a pilot, Poe Dameron, those are kind of like your traditional kind of pilot ones. I feel like Boba Fett would be in there, but then personally, here are the ones I'm going to throw out there. Okay. Because I think there needs to be some deeper cuts. Thal Jobin, he's a racer from the 80s Droids animated series.
Amazing.
And my partner and I love that show so much. It's so silly. And I think you just have to have him in there. And then the other one I would put is Annie Kalfis, I think is her name, from the Aardman developed an episode for Star Wars Visions. They did, and it's all about a mother and a daughter entering a family race. So it's non-canon, but so is the droids character I picked. So I think you should throw those 2 in there as well.
I think so is the hypothetical Star Wars Super Nintendo racing game that we're talking about. So sure. All is welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this has been so much fun. this is one of the big ones, and it does feel daunting knowing that we've now ticked off Mario 3, Mario World, Mario 64. This is almost the end of an era as we start talking about some of the weirder, deeper parts of the Mario multiverse. As I've said on every single episode, you have to check out Lee Carvallo's Podding Challenge, and if you love Star Wars and all that stuff, I think Distant Echoes is really great, and I'm going to be on it very soon as well. And also Tommy has, of course, been part of the Glitter Jaw podcasting collective and appeared on other episodes of various shows here and there. But is there anything else you'd like to plug or say right at the end?
No, those are really it. I'm very grateful that you had me on. This was so much fun. I love talking about Mario. If people want to find me online, my handle is awkward comma, just at awkward comma, pretty much everywhere, mostly on Blue Sky. You can also find me on Instagram as well. And then, yeah, you mentioned my two podcasts, Lee Carvallo's Podding Challenge, and then Distant Echoes, a Star Wars podcast.
Well, this has been great. Super Mario Moment is, of course, a member of the Glitter Jaw Queer Podcasting Collective. We are also on Blue Sky and Instagram. You can find us anywhere. I'm Hamish Steele. Glitterjaw.com also has a wonderful resources page where we list relevant episodes to, important topics, along with links to donate and try and make the world a better place. This is the first time in Super Mario Moment history when I really do not know what the next episode is about, but I do know what we've got coming later in the month. Before Christmas, and we go on our little season hiatus. We're going to be talking about Mario Galaxy, which is very fun because of the new movie, and we also have a very special Christmas episode, which will be a Glitter Jaw all-star crossover Smash Brothers race to the finish. I don't know, but it will be really fun, and I hope you look forward to that. But next week is anyone's guess right now. And so thank you, Tommy, thank you, listeners, and until next time, so long, gay Bowsers.